Thank you. Just related to the same subject matter that we have before us, I also want to just put one more motion on the record for colleagues to consider. It is related to the subject matter at hand. The clerk has digital and paper copies. So I'll read it out as follows. That given the RCMP report on violent criminal activities linked to agents of the government of India from October 14th, 2024, the Hague Commission's identification of foreign interference activities by Russia, Pakistan, China, and Iran, and the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians' special report on foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions, the chair reports to the House that the committee calls for all federal party leaders to apply for the appropriate security clearance level in the next 30 days in order to review classified information and take necessary actions to protect Canadians. Mr. Chair, I think it's important that we move this motion because all federal party leaders have now received security clearance to review unredacted briefings on this very serious matter, except for one. And I think it's high time that, given the revelations that we heard on Monday, that we present a united front. And I think it's incredibly important for this committee to report back to the House that we recommend this course of action. And I will leave it there, Mr. Chair. I think the motion is self-explanatory. Thank you.
This does relate to the matter at hand, I think, very directly, so I will consider it in order. And I see Mr. Lloyd wishes to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's our very strong contention as Conservatives that any member of Parliament, any member of our political parties that are colluding with foreign powers to advance the interests of a foreign nation's agenda in our country need to be named so that Canadians can know and be fully transparent and clear the good name of the Parliament of Canada, which has been sullied these past many months by innuendo and allegations that have been made without full evidence that we haven't seen. And it's the contention of the Conservative Party of Canada that we need to release all those names so that we can take appropriate action and move on. We strongly believe that that a motion like this, which attempts to force the hand of all federal leaders on the security clearance front, is an attempt to muzzle the leader of the opposition from speaking out on the very important issue of foreign interference. We have to remember, I was raising the issue of foreign interference at this committee years ago, and we were assured repeatedly by ministers of this government that foreign interference was not taking place in Canada's election. We were being reassured that foreign interference was not serious in Canada. This was just 2 years ago. And due to leaks from CSIS and our security agencies, and we have now come to learn that that was not the case, that there has been widespread allegations of foreign interference. And sadly today, with the recent RCMP announcement on Monday, it's escalated to the lives of Canadians being threatened allegedly by a foreign government. And how has this been allowed to happen after 9 years? Like, I remember back in 2015 working in the previous government that this would have been unheard of, that foreign governments were threatening the lives of Canadian citizens. And yet after 9 years under this Liberal government, due to their complete lack of action and complete lack of proactive activity to protect Canada, that this has just been allowed to proliferate in this country. And it's not just allegations against India. There's a number of countries that see Canada as a completely soft target for foreign interference. And it's leadership. It's lack of leadership in Canada under this Liberal government, under this Liberal Prime Minister, who has now decided to try to weaponize the issue of foreign interference for his own political ends, to distract from the very real problems that his leadership is facing even within his own party, to try to weaponize the issue of national security for his own partisan ends. It's frankly, it's disgusting. I find it disgusting what this Prime Minister has done. And so I'll be moving forward with an amendment to this motion that we release the names of of all members of Parliament, all parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered with, who have colluded, knowingly colluded with foreign powers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. So we have an amendment on the floor, and the discussion is on the amendment. We have Mr. Halen up next. Did you wish to speak on the amendment? I'm sorry?
It's an amendment. He moved an amendment. So do
I
we
know.
get a, is a
I
new
just
list?
said so.
It's a new list, is it not? Speaking list? We don't need to speak on it. Speak to the
I'm asking if you want to speak to this amendment.
I'll speak to the amendment. Well, we want to go to a vote.
So there is a list of on the main motion as
I'll wait
once
for
it's
that.
done.
I'll wait for that.
And so I'll open it up. Any questions? Any speaking? Any debate on the amendment of Mr. Lloyd? And we see Ms. Dancho. I see Ms. May. She's had her hand up for a while. We'll start with Ms. May. Dancho. And Ms. Khalid.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this. I feel duty bound as someone who is has top secret security clearance and is perhaps more aware of the legislative framework around the security of information, that I feel duty bound to speak to say that this motion would be very inappropriate and in fact would be calling on people who have access to top secret security information to break the law. And I know that can't be Mr. Lloyd's intention, but the Security of Information Act, which used to be called the Official Secrets Act, requires that information that is collected and is in a top secret security designation not be made public. There are many reasons for this, including that we could be risking the lives of intelligence assets of the Government of Canada, people, real live human beings unknown to us around the world who help Canadian security agencies and RCMP collect information. Even the publication of the numbers of people involved can, to another hostile foreign power, they can work by inference backwards and figure out, well, if Canadians know about that, they can only have gotten it from this source. And then that source could have their life in danger. So it's very important that I agree with the intention of Mr. McGregor's motion. It's very important. And I really do urge Mr. Poilievre, as a friend and a colleague, to ask for his top secret security clearance to clear the air. It must be done. But that is another matter altogether from saying the names should be made public. To do that is to urge colleagues to break the law, but perhaps even worse than breaking the law, to place Canadian intelligence assets at risk. And I think the motion might come back to committee with the amendment. The amendment might come back to committee after the committee and all members have had briefings on this point, not from me, but from our intelligence apparatus, from the people at CSIS, the people who handle security within the Privy Council office, the RCMP, and so on, so that everybody around this committee table is fully informed that releasing the names is a non-starter, is a threat to Canadian security, and can actually jeopardize lives. Thank you.
Okay, we go now to Ms. Dancho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's interesting, Ms. May's stories from her perspective when she's read the unredacted and succumb report to now seems to have changed quite a bit in tone and scope. So I just find that interesting that her perspective has changed just so recent. So anyway, I would say, though, this amendment to ensure that the names are released would be in line with a number of what our allies do. For example, the United Kingdom rightfully names and shames any members of Parliament who are acting in a treasonous manner or who are colluding with foreign countries to undermine the United Kingdom's national interest. And I do believe that Canada should be doing the same, and I agree with my colleague Dane Lloyd that otherwise, the Prime Minister seems to just be weaponizing this so-called secret information that he continues to talk about without actually saying the names to his own advantage. And I certainly would agree with the former NDP leader who, certainly won many more seats than the current leader of the NDP, and has said again just recently, I agree completely with Mr. Poilievre's decision not to take the bait. That is, he's referring to Mr. Trudeau's allegation, or Mr. Trudeau's claims. He said Trudeau has been trying for a year and a half to restrain what Pierre Poilievre can do by trying to say, come on, get this private briefing, and oh, by the way, then you'll be held to an official secret and you won't be able to talk about this anymore. So it seems notable and frankly formidable NDP former leaders would agree with Pierre Poilievre, our leader of the Conservative Party, that any effort to do this is really an effort to put him under some sort of gag order so he can't really do his duty to hold the Prime Minister accountable for matters of foreign interference. So it's interesting to see now under Mr. Singh that Mr. Singh is working hand in hand with Mr. Trudeau yet again to try to gag order Pierre Poilievre from being able to speak about this issue. So it's interesting that Mr. Singh recently made a big show of ripping up some so-called, it was really an informal coalition with the Liberal government, but it would appear now they're really helping Mr. Trudeau to carry water on the really shameless partisan politics he's playing in the foreign interference inquiry, which until this point has been quite a serious and respectable and professional undertaking until the Prime Minister decided to make some sort of ruthless and shameless political show and a circus out of the whole affair. And I think what's really important for this committee to remember, and certainly Canadians will, that the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, had to be dragged kicking and screaming into this foreign interference inquiry. You'll remember, Mr. Chair, that he had first denied there was any election interference from China, for example, denied anything was going on with the member of Don Valley North in that nomination. And yet here we are in a foreign interference inquiry, and not only is there clear interference from China, but also from India and from Iran and Pakistan and Russia. We have, in fact, at the worst point in history when it comes to foreign interference, and we've had this same Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, for 9 years. So what does that say about his leadership or lack thereof? And I would also point out that the person in this country most responsible for foreign interference and preventing it and keeping national security safe is the Prime Minister of Canada. And so if we've had the same Prime Minister of Canada, and now this has come to such a point that 13 individuals, the RCMP had to announce 13 individuals are in peril because foreign interference has gotten so bad, what does that really say about his leadership? So what's interesting to me is that in the foreign interference inquiry, which he's made a farce of with his recent partisan attacks, that he's really trying to do two things. Number one, distract from his failed record to prevent foreign interference in this country. The fact that he's created an environment that's worse than ever at any time in Canadian history of foreign interference, that other foreign adversaries and others feel that we are a weak country, that they can bully under Prime Minister Trudeau's so-called leadership. And the second thing, of course, Mr. Chair, is that the Prime Minister is trying to distract from the fact that he has an ongoing revolt in his caucus looking to overthrow him. So it's no wonder why he's doing this, but certainly if he continues, as my colleague said, to weaponize this, then he should release the names, because Canadians deserve to know who it is in Parliament right now or in the past who has been undermining the national interest on purpose to aid a foreign country. They absolutely deserve to know that, and those individuals need to be held accountable. And I would also say that it's interesting that he won't do so, and I wonder why that is. Well, perhaps it's because out of any party, it makes the Liberal Party look bad. Again, he was the one who denied that there was election interference from China, for example. He's the one who denied there was any issue here at all, and yet here we are. So he continues to deny that there's any issue there, but I would suspect that's why he's not releasing the names. So I think we could put this to bed. It's rapidly devolving into some McCarthy witch hunt as a result of the Prime Minister's actions, and I think we can easily clear this up today by releasing the names. Canadians deserve to know, and the Prime Minister should be showing leadership in this regard and ensuring that he's actually taking action on this intelligence. And I would say in the last thing, Mr. Chair, that it's not clear why we're taking intelligence if we're not able to utilize it to ensure that these individuals are held accountable. And if they're semi-witting or unwittingly knowing, then they should know, and they should be informed. And so I think it is imperative that Parliament learn who these people are, if any, and move forward with that information. And Mr. Chair, I'd also say that, again, the responsibility for national security lies with the Prime Minister. The only reason we are here is because he's failed to protect that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Gahir, please.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I think it's rich that the Conservatives are... I can hear an echo again. I think it's rich that the Conservatives are talking about this issue when their leader engages in willful blindness by burying his head in the sand and not getting top secret security clearance. He can quite literally get top secret clearance, learn the names of the people in his own party that are vulnerable or have been vulnerable to foreign interference, that have engaged with foreign governments, and then remove those names because he has ultimate power in his party. He can remove those names from his party. This motion, this sub-amendment that's been brought is it's practically out of order because The RCP has stated this, CSIS has stated this, that anyone who reveals classified information is subject to the law equally. So obviously, in this case, the names that are classified at this time, to reveal them publicly would be a criminal offense, because that's what this sub-amendment is asking. It's asking the Prime Minister to engage in a criminal offense. What we can see is from the last few months, for the last year, Ms. May and Mr. Singh from the Greens and NDP respectively have done a wonderful job commenting on this issue, and they have not been muzzled at all on this issue. So I think it's very rich that the leader of the Conservatives engages in this behavior, refuses to get top secret security clearance, and points fingers. I think this sub-amendment is a non-starter, and we should just go to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gahir. We go now to Ms. Landsman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. While I appreciate members of this committee thinking that the motion is out of order because they don't like it, that's not exactly how it works. And I think what we're seeing now here at this committee is that there's only one party in this country that is calling for the release of this name, and for the release of these names, the names that the Prime Minister has alluded to, the names that we know are being kept secret, and everyone else is trying to work to hide the names, particularly the changing stories of Miss May since before and after she read the briefings or she was briefed in. Now we see that the NDP are trying to distract from what was brought to this committee as a serious issue today, the serious issue of foreign interference by India, and they're now playing politics with it. Listen to this. I agree completely with Poilievre's decision not to take the bait. Trudeau has been trying for a year and a half to restrain what Pierre Poilievre can do by trying to say, come and get this private briefing. And oh, by the way, then you'll be held to an official secret and that you won't be able to talk about this anymore. Do you know who said that, Mr. Chair? That was Thomas Mulcair. That was the leader of the NDP when the NDP used to be an opposition party that wasn't helping the Liberals cover this up. The question is what is the government trying to hide? Now, for everybody watching, they might not know that the CSIS Act allows the government to offer information to any Canadian about specific risks of foreign interference without forcing them into sworn secrecy or controlling what they say. But this motion particularly is about releasing the names that Canadians deserve to know of any parliamentarian in any party that has been wittingly associated with foreign interference, with a foreign government working against the interests of Canadians. But receiving a secret briefing would, even according to the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, would prevent the recipient from using that information in any manner. Now, I don't think that's very smart for an opposition party, one that only exists, the only opposition party that exists to force the Prime Minister to come clean with Canadians in what he is trying to hide. This particular motion that was dropped at committee makes a mockery, the same kind of mockery that the Trudeau government has repeatedly made with foreign interference. What we witnessed at the public inquiry this week was nothing more than well-rehearsed partisan smears by a failing Prime Minister who is facing rejection from Canadians from coast to coast, and increasingly from his own Liberal Party, ones that are having letter-writing campaigns to oust him from his leadership. And it is beyond rich for the Prime Minister to grandstand, given the record that his government has shown on not taking foreign interference seriously, with all of the benefits of the government agencies that he has, with all of the information that he was warned with, including in the Liberal Party, and the fact that he refused to act. It is this Prime Minister and his government who repeatedly claimed that they weren't aware of foreign interference happening right under their noses, despite a massive paper trail of warnings from officials. It is Justin Trudeau's government, which mysteriously sat as we learned from the inquiry last week on a CSIS surveillance warning, a warrant application for a Liberal power broker for 54 days, and still there is no answers about that. The minister says he doesn't know. Other ministers say that he doesn't know. There are staffers who gave absolutely no answers at that commission. It is Justin Trudeau's party who willingly allowed Chinese high school students to vote in the now infamous Han Dong nomination race, and that was fine. It was Justin Trudeau who ignored calls from the leader of the opposition to release those names to Parliament. He has repeatedly done that, and now the entire country is asking for those names. You cannot go to the committee under the guise of providing information, drop that kind of partisan smear job on members of Parliament, and then not come clean with the names. And the only people that are looking to have those names told to the Canadian public is the Conservative Party. We are fighting now every single party that is working with Justin Trudeau and his government to cover up these names, and Canadians deserve to know. Canadians deserve to know which members of Parliament in which party, no matter what, are colluding with foreign governments wittingly or unwittingly. And unlike others who are willing to limit their ability to hold government to account on important issues of national security, Conservatives will not do that. And Mr. Poilievre will not be left under a gag order and left unable to speak about any of the information he receives. But all of that to say that these names have to come out. And they have to be, and there's only one person who can do that, and that's the Prime Minister of Canada. The government, through CSIS, is authorized by a particular section in the CSIS Act. It's section 12.1. He could act at any time to utilize threat reduction measures to notify the leader of a political party of issues concerning national security. He did not do that. Instead, he chose to make it public in an inquiry and cast aspersions with absolutely no evidence and no follow-through on letting Canadians know who those people are, who those members of Parliament is. This tool has been available to his government since he started, since 2015. He could use that tool to inform Mr. Poilievre, and he's not doing that. All of that to say is that the motion on the table is to release the names. Again, there is one party asking for this Prime Minister to release every single one of those names, and the other parties that are purportedly in opposition helping the Prime Minister hide those names, hide the identities of all of those members of Parliament. The question really is to the entire committee is, what on earth are you hiding? What is the Prime Minister hiding? I think that's the question that we have to get to the bottom of in this committee, and I hope that members will vote for this amendment to make those names public for the betterment of our national security, and for every Canadian to know who represents them, and for every Canadian to know ahead of the next election who they are actually voting for, which country they are working for, and if they have Canadian best interests at heart. And only the Prime Minister can do that. Everything else is pure politics. That's what we've seen this week, and unfortunately, that's what we're seeing right now at this committee.
To Mr. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, we see this costly cover-up coalition in full force. Jagmeet Singh, in this fake theatrical performance that he probably learned from Justin Trudeau, pretended to rip up his so-called agreement. And then once he used the people of Winnipeg, he taped it right back up. And once again, we're seeing the Liberals and the NDP, and obviously the leader of the Green Party, try to cover up, divide, and distract Canadians from this flailing Prime Minister. This is such a serious issue of foreign interference happening, where the RCMP has alleged that members of the South Asian community have been targeted by a foreign government, in this case India, for allegations of murder, of extortion, of violent threats. And what do the Liberals and the NDP do? With the help of the Green Party, they want to distract away from that there's a Liberal revolt happening within Justin Trudeau's caucus. They want to distract Canadians away from the pain and misery Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have caused them with the high cost of living by doubling their housing and making sure that there's more food bank usage than ever before in this country. And on top of all of that, letting Canada become a safe haven for and a playground for foreign interference. I'd like to just give one clear message to Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh from our common sense conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, in a letter he just recently wrote. Release the names of all MPs that have collaborated with foreign interference. We can put this whole thing to bed. Canadians want to know. Canadians want to know who are those MPs working in the best interest of foreign governments and not in the best interest of Canadians. It shouldn't be that hard to do. The CSIS Act allows, and the CSIS Act allows the government to offer information to any Canadian about specific risks of foreign interference without forcing them into sworn secrecy or controlling what they say. Receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau's Chief of Staff, prevent the recipient from using the information in any manner. And even where that is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding an MP could put the leader or representation of a political party in a tough position because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. So, in clear words, Justin Trudeau and the NDP are trying to muzzle not just the leader of the Conservative Party, but all Canadians. Justin Trudeau doesn't need to wait for an inquiry. According to the CSIS Act, he can walk over to Pierre Poilievre and give him the names. He doesn't need to continue to muzzle. He muzzled the NDP leader, so because of greed for his $2.2 million pension, and he's also obviously muzzled the Green Party leader. And this is why Canadians are so fed up and want an election now. Common sense Conservatives are the only party inside the House of Commons and outside the House of Commons that are calling to release the names now. Can you imagine that there's people sitting in the House of Commons today that are not working in the best interest of Canadians? This can include anyone. Can you believe that a sitting member of the House of Commons could have major implications on trade deals, doing what's in the best interest of foreign governments and not in the best interest of Canadians?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Khalid, on a point of order?
Yes, thank you. I do take a lot of exception to the member calling the integrity of the members of parliament in our parliament into question with what he's saying. I take major exception to that.
That would be Standing Order 18, and I would advise the members to be cognizant of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, Mr. Speaker, we see once again the Liberals will do anything to distract away.
Point of order again, Mr. Chair. I don't appreciate if the member has points to raise on his motion, as is absolutely his right, please do so. Please don't try to call into question the integrity of the members that are in this chamber.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Was that Ms. Lansman?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Just want to remind the member that it's the Prime Minister himself at the inquiry that called into question the integrity of members of Parliament by naming parties and affiliations without actually putting the names down, and that's exactly what we're arguing here today.
Thank you, Mr. Halen. You were.
Thank you to the great Melissa Lansman from Thornhill, our co-deputy leader, for that clarification. I also didn't know hurt feelings could be point of orders, because that's what it seems like the Liberals keep
Point of order
now.
again, Mr. Chair. Don't,
Ms. Khalid,
please
point of
don't.
order, please.
It's not nice. Make your arguments as the right of every parliamentarian in committees. Let's not call people names. Let's not go down this path. Let's be respectful, please, of everybody.
Thank you for your point of order, and point is well taken. Please, everybody, try to be polite to each other.
I'll continue, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully I'm not interrupted because of hurt feelings. But furthermore to our leader's letter to Justin Trudeau, furthermore, my Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government, and at no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference. This is in stark contrast of what the Prime Minister has alleged and what we've heard Ms. May flip-flop on from when she said she took the briefing to now and to what the NDP is claiming. Our leader goes on to say if Justin Trudeau has evidence to the contrary, he should share it with the public. Now that he has blurted it out in general terms at a commission of inquiry, he should release the facts. But he won't, because he is making it up. Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying. He is lying to distract from a Liberal caucus revolt.
Mr. Singh, it is inappropriate parliamentary language to refer to a member as lying.
I just want to get some clarification. I'm reading a letter that was sent to the Prime Minister. Okay.
It's not acceptable.
Thank you. I'll retract the lying, but I will say what our leader is saying in general is that Justin Trudeau is misleading. It's what he always does. He's distracting from a Liberal caucus revolt against his leadership and revelations. He knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere and help him win 2 elections. It is beyond rich for Justin Trudeau to grandstand, given that the record now shows that he and his government, with all the benefits of government agencies, were repeatedly warned about foreign interference, including within the Liberal Party, and he refused to act. If Justin Trudeau and his government, who repeatedly claim that they just weren't aware of foreign interference happening right under their noses, despite a paper trail of warnings from officials. It is Justin Trudeau's government which mysteriously sat on a CSIS surveillance warrant application for a Liberal power broker for 54 days. It is Justin Trudeau's party that willingly allowed the PRC consulate to bus in PRC international high school students to vote in the now infamous Han Dong nomination race. It is also Justin Trudeau who has ignored our leader's calls to release the names of parliamentarians referenced in this spring's NCCOP report who have wittingly worked for the benefit of foreign governments against the interest of Canadians. This is nothing but a cover-up. Once again, Justin Trudeau, with the help of the NDP, are just trying to distract away from the pain and misery and the foreign interference they have allowed in this country after 9 years. This is nothing but politics for these people. This has nothing to do with the safety and security of Canadians, the democracy that we should be upholding, or the sovereignty of Canada is not being upheld by these parties. It is only the Conservative Party that is asking for full transparency and to release the names. That's what this is all about. Well, we're calling the bluff of this costly coalition, this cover-up coalition now. Just release the names. Release the names of those MPs that are not working in the best interest of Canadians. It is that simple. There should be no excuse now. There should be no reason for anyone to doubt that any parliamentarian that is duly elected to the House of Commons is not working in the best interest of Canadians. I also want to mention that it's this Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who admitted at the public inquiry that there are Liberal names and names from every party. Conservatives are not scared of names being released. We're saying release the names now. It's only this cover-up coalition of the Liberals and the NDP who are afraid. What we want to know is, what do they have to hide? What do they have to hide? They're scared to go to an election because they're scared of Canadians, but they're willfully letting foreign interference, which includes threats, violence, extortions, and even alleged murder happening in this country to Canadians. all just so that they can cover up for their incompetency. This is 9 years of Justin Trudeau with the help of Jagmeet Singh. I'll make it clear one more time. Common sense Conservatives are asking for the names to be released immediately so that Canadians can feel safe once again on Canadian soil. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll go now to Ms. May. Ms. May, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my friends and colleagues around the table. I do want to make it very clear to my friend from Coton and St. Paul's and to Melissa Lansman as well. I haven't changed my position at all. I don't own any flip-flops. I don't flip-flop. I stand on principle. I was trained as a lawyer. I'm honored to have been admitted to the bar of Nova Scotia and Ontario. And so when I went through the process of getting top secret security clearance, I was very mindful of what I can say and what I couldn't say. I was quite sure that when David Johnston, his former special rapporteur, opened the door for the first time, that leaders of opposition parties could seek top secret security clearance and potentially obtain it. You don't get it as of right. Have they uncovered something in my past that would make me subject to blackmail or intimidation or be compromised through any form of interference, I wouldn't have gotten top secret security clearance. I would have been denied it. Now, to go to the matter of did my story change? Not one bit. I read the report, the unredacted version of the report of the Committee of Parliamentarians. Before I spoke publicly, and I think it's important for me to explain to my colleagues how I navigated this. How do you obtain top secret security clearance? Read information that must by law remain secret and still talk about it. Well, the answer is you're careful as you navigate. So the notes I plan to use in a press conference, I shared with security agencies. I want my colleagues around the table to know that some things I had intended to say that I thought would be non-controversial and not reveal any secrets included the exact number of people who were considered witting or semi-witting. I repeat again that I do not believe any of our colleagues currently serving in Parliament, at least in terms of the report I read. There may be other information. Certainly the Prime Minister has had other kinds of briefings that I haven't had, but based on the text of the report of the Committee of Parliamentarians, on which our colleagues from the Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Conservatives put an enormous amount of work. Our colleagues read 33,000 pages of top secret security material and condensed it into a report that they could all stand behind. And then with some deletions and other modifications to make it publicly accessible, that became public information. I was able to read the report unredacted. I stand by every word I said. But before I said a word, because I wasn't gagged, clearly, I was able to talk about it. But I went through my notes with security experts to make sure I didn't inadvertently violate any laws of Canada or inadvertently place at risk any of our intelligence assets. So to my colleagues around the table, I want you to know that I actually edited and changed what I was going to say in a press conference, not taking out names, but even the number of people who might be considered semi-witting in any way potentially compromised. That's to say, again, I repeat, no one currently serving in Parliament, to my knowledge, in the House of Commons, has been compromised or is serving the interests of a foreign government. There are some people who have been referenced as semi-witting, but even the number, the numerical categorization of how many people might fall in that category, I was told clearly, could not be said publicly without placing at risk the lives of our intelligence assets around the world. I want my colleagues to understand this isn't a game. This isn't politics. I'm not playing games here. I'm telling you how it is when you navigate with top secret security clearance, what you can say and what you can't say. So the amendment to this motion would release all the names sounds grand if you operate in ignorance of the law and in ignorance of how security and intelligence operatives and intelligence and security information gathering operates in the real world where there are bad people. And we have to be careful as members of parliament not to allow political rhetoric to get in the way of what we do to serve Canadians. So I just wanted to clear that up. I hope it helps. We can't just say release all the names if we're operating in ignorance of the ongoing knock-on effects that could have in terms of endangering lives of intelligence assets of Canada. I've navigated this as carefully as I can because I think it's really critical that Canadians know as much as we possibly can share without violating national security. I think this committee is on a good path in choosing to have an investigation. I do again believe that it's important to clear up any suggestion that foreign interference had an impact on the Conservative leadership race. That's an obvious point. That's already out there in public. That's on page 32, paragraph 72 of the public version of the Committee of Parliamentarians report. I think Mr. Poilievre would want to know himself exactly what is referenced there and get a top secret security clearance unless there's some reason he thinks he won't get it. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't want to obtain it. I think I've made it clear, and I think Mr. Singh, as leader of the Democratic Party, has made it clear. Mr. Blanchet is still in the process of getting his top secret security clearance, that we believe we can serve the people of Canada and share the information that we can share without breaking the law and help all Canadians understand. And I wrote each individual leader of all the parties in the House of Commons to please get top secret security clearance so we could meet as a group, as a unified force, and tell foreign powers, whether Russia or the People's Republic of China or India or any of the sources of foreign interference, that we operate in Canada as a solid wall to tell foreign powers, we're not giving you space here. We unify, we pull together. And for that, it would certainly be helpful if all the leaders of all the federal political parties obtained top secret security clearance so we could work together without risking violating the security establishment and the safety and security of people, non-Canadians, somewhere else around the world, who are sharing information with our operatives. Those people must not be placed at risk because of reckless political rhetoric here at home. Anyway, I do wish that this committee is able to continue on the study and the kind of accusations of one party versus another are kept to a bare minimum. I guess it's impossible to avoid it altogether, but I haven't changed my story, not one bit. I do believe that you can have top secret security clearance and navigate that responsibility, and it's an onerous responsibility to respect the security establishment of this country, navigate it, and share with Canadians that we have in terms of elected members of parliament, and again, I repeat this, not one person that has actively worked against the interests of Canada. There are, as we said, the category that the committee used and the language they used, witting or semi-witting. It's unusual language, but that's the language they used. And there are some people in that category. But on my reading of the unredacted version of the report, the semi-witting or witting category of MPs have not committed acts that fall into the category of proactive betrayal of their country's interests. Those names and even the number of people in that category, I have been warned by people in our security establishment, must not be shared publicly. Therefore, I'm uncomfortable with the idea that we can just taunt various people, just make it all public. I'm not hiding anything. I do my best to be transparent, and that's why I'm grateful for the chance to take the floor again. I hope that has helped clear things up. I do hope we can all be on the same side here of getting as much information as we can, because we've moved from where we were when David Johnston was made special rapporteur with the concern how much have foreign interests interfered in our elections. We're now looking at very clear accusations that the RCMP uncovered a network of operatives reporting to a criminal element within India operating on Canadian soil to endanger lives. They're very different categories of foreign interference, and they all require deep respect and a degree of caution in how we go forward so we don't betray any information that must be kept secure and secret in the interests of our ability to work with Five Eyes partners and be understood to be a country where secure and secret information remains respected and stays secure and secret. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. May. We go now to Mr. Upal, followed by Mr. McGregor. Mr. Upal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think, first of all, I must say that this committee started off discussing a very serious issue, an issue of national security, issue of protecting Canadians, an issue where addressing the very serious matter where RCMP made allegations of murder, extortion, organized crime, intimidation, coercion by agents of the Indian government. And there was agreement by this committee to move forward and address that. And it's unfortunate that we have now gone into a place where we are discussing and debating issue of how the NDP and the Liberals are working together to cover up names of MPs, not wanting to release names of MPs who have not been working in the best interest of Canadians. Ms. May talked about how she cannot release those names, that she cannot release the names. She, in fact, cannot take any action based on the information that she has, because she's has taken that clearance and read the name. She has the information, but she cannot release the name. She cannot do anything with that information, and that is particularly the point. Receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister's own Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, prevent a recipient from using the information in any manner. So essentially, that person who receives the briefing would not be able to use or do anything with that briefing. It is a gag order. It is not allowing that person to take any action, to discuss it with the information that they have. And then it goes on. She goes on to say, even where that it is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding an MP could put the leader or representative of a political party in a tough position, because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. So that is why that this is a better situation. What would be the better situation is for the Prime Minister, because he brought this up at the Hague Commission. He is the one that came out and said, yes, there are Liberals on that list and members from other parties on that list, and he should bring that information forward. He should bring it publicly. He should release those names. In that way, that political party leaders can take action that they see fit based on those names, based on that information. Because otherwise, as Ms. May herself has said, that you cannot take any action. You cannot discuss those names, and you cannot release them. And so, for that reason, that is a better way to go. And within the CSIS Act, there actually is provision to be able to give the leader of a party sensitive information, pertinent information, especially when it comes to the national security of the nation. So all of that process is available, and Justin Trudeau, as the Prime Minister, can give that information to any political leader, or he can release those names publicly. We would say release them publicly, because if there are members of Parliament who have been elected by Canadian citizens, by their electorate, and they are not working in the best interest of Canadians, then that information should be made public. That is the best way to deal with this. Canadians deserve to know who these people are. And getting back to the situation that we originally were dealing with, we were on foreign interference, and this is, coming out of that, is that on foreign interference there are a number of steps that could have been taken to protect Canadians. And it's unfortunate that we are now on this very serious issue of foreign interference, that we are now playing, well, we are discussing the NDP and the Liberals playing political games when we should be discussing how we can stop foreign interference. One of the allegations that the RCMP have made, very serious allegation against agents of the Indian government, is that they were taking part in extortion against Canadians. And we have heard in the last number of months, over a year now, where very serious cases of extortion were taking part, are happening across the country. There have been shootings at homes. There have been homes that have been burnt down. Over a dozen brand new built homes in Edmonton were burnt down. There have been businesses that have been shot at. Some alleged to have been directed by international gangsters. These are issues that we should be looking at, that we should be debating. I brought forward a private member's bill, Bill C-381, that would have given stricter penalties to anybody who takes part in extortion, mandatory minimum sentences to keep extortionists in jail longer, minimum penalties for at least 3 years if somebody commits extortion, 4 years mandatory minimum sentence if somebody was to commit extortion using a firearm, and 5 years of mandatory minimum sentence for someone who would commit extortion in connection with organized crime. And this links back to exactly what the RCMP has alleged, that agents of the Indian government are working with organized crime in Canada, and particularly in a organized crime unit out of India, the Bishnoi Group, to extort Canadians here on Canadian soil. So that last provision of mandatory minimums using convicting anyone that is involved in organized crime and extortion would get 5 years minimum, that is minimum, to be in jail. Now, unfortunately, all of the NDP members in the House of Commons and Liberals voted against that bill. And it is unfortunate that when we talk about in this place about protecting Canadians and taking steps to ensure that Canadians are kept safe, that ensure that Canadians are able to express themselves freely, to have political opinions that are different than others, and to do so in a peaceful manner, that when solutions come forward, the Liberals and the NDP do not take action. They did not vote in favor of that bill. They essentially are saying that they're fine with not keeping extortionists in jail longer. And that, again, really speaks to how serious are they about addressing these issues. And that's, and even right now, the issue that we are dealing with right now goes along in the same manner that we should be discussing ways of stopping foreign interference from any country, including India, not looking at ways to make cheap political points, as they are doing right now. On the issue of a security clearance, the same day that the RCMP made these very serious allegations, the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, received a briefing from Canada's security agencies. So he received all the information. He got the same briefing that the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, got. So provisions are there to be able to give the leader of the opposition the information that is required without gagging him, without him not being able to speak about that information, not being able to take action against that information. And when it comes to the names of members of Parliament who have not been working in the interests of Canadians or colluding with a foreign nation, and this is actually an issue that the Prime Minister brought up. I know the Liberal member was saying that we should not raise to suggest that some members of parliament in this place may be colluding with a foreign government or cast aspersions on other members of parliament, it was actually the Prime Minister himself that did so. And those names can and should be released. Canadians deserve to know who those members of parliament are. No other individual, whether it's a party leader, just like Elizabeth May herself has said that she cannot release that information. Nobody else can do that, but the Prime Minister can. And if there is serious national security issues that the leader of the opposition should know, CSIS has the ability within the CSIS Act to provide that information to the Prime Minister, to the leader of the opposition, future Prime Minister, to ensure that he can take appropriate action. And so instead of going down this path of the NDP helping the Liberals cover up these names, of the NDP and the Liberals getting together to make these cheap political points, I think this committee should continue back with originally what we started off with, of dealing with the very serious issue of foreign interference, the very serious issue of Canadians being assassinated, murdered on Canadian soil, of extortion taking place across the country, organized crime being used by a foreign government, intimidation of Canadians, coercion of Canadians. This is a matter of our sovereignty, our democracy. And this committee now has, because of the NDP and the Liberals, has turned into trying to make cheap political points. And I would suggest that we get back to the very important issue. There are a number of questions that we have as Canadians that we should have. I mean, if the RCMP has alleged that a foreign gang is using gangsters in Canada and international gangsters to carry out the extortion and the other organized crime and intimidation, then how is it that those Canadians, that those people are in Canada? Why are those people in Canada? And also that through our National Task Force and other investigative efforts, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates for very, very serious issues. These are issues that we should be addressing here. Violent extremists impacting both countries. This is an issue that this committee should be looking into. Links tying agents of the government of India to homicides and violent acts that are happening here in Canada. There are the use of organized crime. Like I said, they're using, they are actually named an international gang to create perception of unsafe environment targeting the South Asian community in Canada. And interference in our democratic processes. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leverage their official position to engage in clandestine activities. These are very, very serious issues. And I must say that these issues are very serious, but they're also ones that have been very difficult to speak to Canadians about. I've got a number of phone calls from members of the Sikh community and others from across the country, but also conversations that I've had to have with my children. They're old enough now to hear about information and hear news, and they're also concerned about what's happening in our country. I know, talk to many Canadians that say, it's not the same country. It's not the country that they came to, the country that has that safety and security. And after 9 years of this government, we are not as safe as many people used to believe, and as safe as people were. And there are a number of ways that information can be shared in order to protect Canadians. Because what the Prime Minister wants to do is to have our leader essentially be gagged, be sworn into secrecy, that he be provided some information, but then not be able to talk about it, not be able to tell Canadians about it, not be able to take any action on it. And the CSIS already has ways of providing that information to the leader. In fact, the Treasury Board Secretariat Policy on Government Security, there is provisions there where they can provide that information to the leader. Cabinet ministers and possibly privy councillors can be provided that information. There is the NSICOP committee that has been provided that information. And like I said before, there's the threat reduction measures, which is commonly known as TRM, under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act, where this information can be provided to the leader of the opposition to be able to take action as appropriate. So I'll say that as for the names of MPs who have been possibly working or colluding with, knowingly or unknowingly, and the leaders of the different parties, because there are Liberals on that list, I believe the Prime Minister also said NDPs, but I know he specifically mentioned Conservatives to make that political point, but there are Liberals on that list as well, and the leaders of those parties, with that information, if provided, the information is provided properly, can take action as they see fit. I also think that the information should be provided publicly. And I think it's, like I've said, that it is important that we get back to the very important issue of foreign interference in this country. Let's drop this kind of attempt at making political points here in this committee and work at taking steps of protecting Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Chair.